All right, Team Basecamp, let's do a quick review of today's big gear progressions. That was a nice moderate workout, right? That was some work. That was hard. I did my strength training early to get that out of the way because I knew it would be hard. I did a little extension before and I struggled. So that was a good, tough one. Looking at Joe Ryder here, you can see just by looking at the power, he nailed this workout. I could look at cadence pretty much. There was a couple trouble points in there, but pretty much looks like it's supposed to. And if I look at heart rate, again, looks like it's supposed to. Oftentimes, when I first drill into a workout, for me, just looking at different things, I tend to go to workout insights first. So I just get like the conditional stuff. Like, was he on target? Yeah. How was the TSS versus plan? On target. What about duration? He went a little bit longer. Any recovery? No, he'll recover tomorrow. TSS gives us excellent insight into that. That doesn't mean he is recovered. He doesn't need any extra rest. He'll still be a little tired tomorrow, but that's training, right? Each day you're carrying a little fatigue from the previous workouts. You look at his TSS versus the plan on target, and that's 7 days. So he's been right on for the last 7 days. So if you think what I'm looking at in insights, how was today? So this workout, and then how has the last 7 days been? That gives me insight into today and how that fits into the acute pattern of training. So spot on. I tend to then take a quick look. His power trend was increasing. Notice I'm just looking at the words that the analytics are doing it underneath. That's what I would expect. Each interval set, there was 2 in a set, got a little harder and a little shorter. His cadence declined. Again, I would expect that because we warmed up at a normal cadence. And his heart rate actually increased a little versus power. He had a slowly increasing trend. That's classic. So with that known, I'll then take a quick look at the workout. So he did the work. He was on target, right? You could almost stop there because this isn't a highly complex workout. And I'd be like, good. I take a quick visual. I can drag over, like, let's say I want to grab like this. Something was going on with cadence here, right? So if I drag over this, notice what happens when I select the interval. It's highlighted here in the whole workout set, but here it zooms it in. When I see this, this is what happens when you shift gears under load. So he was probably grinding in his trainer, wasn't quite comfortable in incline mode, experimented with shifting a gear. It looks like he shifted into an easier gear, so his power kind of drops a little, and then as he finds it, his power goes up, and then his cadence comes up, but then he levels it all off. Okay, that's that. Honestly, in reviewing this kind of workout, that's 90% of what I'm looking at. I do like to look at quadrant analysis. Sometimes people overthink quadrant analysis. What I want to see really, and what quadrant analysis is doing, is this is his average cadence, this is his average torque. I'm not using power here, but you can use power. I've seen some people post charts using power. Basically, he spent about 45% of his time in quadrant 2, which is low cadence, high torque, low cadence, high force. You could, same difference, right? And if you were doing the workout with me, we did a lot of focus on that, didn't we? There was a lot of intervals where we were just grinding. And you can see, like, this is a little hard to understand, but this is his threshold as the relationship between cadence and torque changes. And he's just under threshold. He's a good tempo pattern underneath that. You see this cluster here at higher cadence, low force. These were the time in between recoveries and the warm-up. I know that looks odd, but I see that great. What I'm looking at is right here. So he was 45% in quadrant 2. He was a little time in quadrant 1. All that seems pretty much on schedule. Honestly, there's not much more complexity to it than that. But let's talk about one thing that we talked about a lot in our workout, and this might help the people doing it in these 2 evening sessions. I'll actually be leading one of the evening sessions, so I'll get to do this again with you. Yay. Not that I don't want to be with you. I'm just not sure I want to do the workout again. Remember what we talked about is we're always going to use this kind of process as a clock face for our pedaling stroke. 12 o'clock is the absolute high point in the pedal stroke, and 6 o'clock is the bottom. Now, what we were working on today, we did the big gear tempo, But that, when we think about why we slow things down from a physiological sense of just what are we building, when we slow things down and increase force, we do a better job of coordinating the recruitment of motor units. How we bring in, how, like we recruit muscle fiber in a specific order, slow to fast. Twitch is a simple way to think about it. And that's called the Henneman principle. It's this just principle. And we always do that, whether you sprint really quick or just slow grind, you're always coordinating in the general order. But that doesn't mean as we transfer muscles, like how engaged is our glute versus our quad versus our calf versus our hamstring, we need to coordinate all of those muscle fibers, all of those motor units, which is really a better term, to work together to move, like to transition load from one set to the other in a more coordinated fashion. That's what we're working on here. By slowing things down and building force, we're slowing it down for our brain to create the right neurological pathing, right coordination, respond, and teach our muscles to respond to that in the right way. So what we were working on today was putting together, today was synchronicity, right? We're putting phase 1 together with phase 2 and trying to coordinate that transition. In the first interval, we focused on phase 1, which was drop your heel at 11 and push your force towards like 3 o'clock on. What a lot of people do, and I'm going to annotate this because it got hard to explain today. I'm going to draw lines on the screen. A lot of us want to pedal this way. Like we get up to the top, we get to this 11 o'clock and we're pushing our force this way. But that's force in the wrong direction. We want that force to be following the crank around in the circle. So by pushing, dropping the heel and pushing to 3, you're pushing the force over the top and immediately starting the down process. So remember, you want to push the force this way, not straight across the top. That's a big secret because what we need out of the top of that phase is maintain the pedal stroke momentum. Think about what happens if you push straight across the top. The crank is here, right? This is going to go, this point where your pedal is going to go in a circle. That means you're bleeding off, you're wasting force. The force going in this direction isn't moving the crank around in a circle, and is wasted energy. Then we focus on phase 2, which is once the crank gets to about 1 o'clock on the clock face, we want to take all of that force that we have going towards 3, angling down, and now stomp it, stomp it, stomp it straight down. Because again, we want to direct the force the way the crank, the pedal is spinning. Now, what we did today that's different, we've practiced these individually. Today, we practice putting them together. And the thing is, a lot of people struggle when you have a pedaling, just in your pedaling stroke, they struggle in this transition, right? And what happens is you're pushing over the top straight, and then suddenly you get to 1 o'clock and the pedal, because it's attached to the crank, starts going straight down, right? It's going to go around in that direction. You have to make a sudden adjustment in direction. There's a lot of wasted force when you're making that subtle adjustment in that kind of direction. Now think about what happens if you push towards that 3 o'clock here. You can round out the force, like hopefully a little more cornered in the end here, but you can round out the force. You follow the circular format better, and you're not bleeding off as much force in this clunky transition. That was something we worked on today. We did a lot in all the big gear intervals. We did big gear interval number 1, just focusing on phase 1. We did big gear interval number 2, focusing on phase 2. And then all the rest, we put them together, did some core engagement and some other tricks that we'll work on. But I want everybody to think about this, because what I did get asked, and it's why I ended up saying it, a lot of people asked me to do a review, like, can we see this in Garmin Dynamics and pedal power phases and stuff like that? No, you really can't. I'll tell you why you don't see it great in Garmin Dynamics. Your Garmin device and your power meter are broadcasting in 60 hertz, so 1 time a second. And if you're pedaling at 90 or pedaling at 40, what do they do with the extra data? Think about that. If it's 1 time a second, you're pedaling at 90, you're creating 30 extra RPM that isn't in the data. If you're pedaling 40 and it's 1 second, you're actually losing. You have blank holes where there's no data. So you can't really trust the data well enough to use Garmin Dynamics. There's some other problems with the way they measure force and vectoring. You in the future will probably see what's known as high definition data, where they'll record it like 6 times that rate. Once they recorded the data much higher, so we can really trust, then it's probably usable data. But right now, the problem is because they're making a lot of that data up with an algorithm, it could send you down the absolute wrong direction. The answer is, and I'm going to do a Nerdcast on this over the weekend, combined Nerdcast toolbox. You have to learn to trust your feelings. All of your pedal stroke is going to power. It's not about making smooth little circles. That doesn't work. It wastes energy. All of your power improvement pedal stroke is going to be coordinating phase 1 and phase 2. There's something we need to do through here that helps the synchronization. We need to clear this other foot as we're making this transition with the power foot. But the reality is so much. You want to increase your power, work these 2 phases together, work the stomp phase stronger. Coordinate these 2 phases, synchronize these 2 phases, and then carry the momentum over and stomp down harder. As you get better at it, I guarantee you'll feel it. So don't worry about Garmin Dynamics or some piece of data. Learn to feel. You know how you feel it? It feels strong. It feels powerful like this. Like, man, I'm just forcing down really strongly. Trust those feelings, and that's a really good way to go about it. All right, everybody. Hope that helped. Talk to you soon.